So we have this model for how reality forms. If you watch this video here, if it doesn't get taken down, so you have the spirit at the top. You have the mind, the mental state here. Um, then you have downstream from that is the matrix, the screen, the illusionary world that we see, that we can observe or measure, is downstream from the collective consciousness. So if you watch this video possibly and then have a look at these here, the rice experiment. There's quite a few videos, but the general idea is that it sort of proves that the collective consciousness can have an effect on the observable physical world. And but say if you wanted to like will something into existence, say like I want $1 million, like if you wish really hard, it's probably not gonna work because um, it's only your will which is out of sync with everyone else's. So it has to be everyone in union to produce the effect that you want, which is how this Hollywood sort of propaganda, predictive programming and stuff kind of works to some extent, but it's also retrocausality and other things going on. But generally, what they're doing is they're putting these ideas out, like with the whole event going on this year. They're putting out this idea that something is real, and then because people believe it, it makes it real. But if you actually look at it, it breaks physical logic. I'm not 100% sure that that's what's going on, but I'm just use that because it's a very good example. So the other thing to look at is the physicists, what the physicists are saying. This video is really good, where it talks about the double slit experiment and basically how consciousness interacts with quantum physics and stuff. And this has been known for a long time, but it kind of has like more significance now. So what my idea is with the Mandela Effect is that this graph here, this point in the graph, it's assumed to be one way, that consciousness, collective consciousness, sort of crystallizes into the perceived world. But my idea is, what if this connection or this mechanism could happen in reverse? So almost like the rice experiment in reverse. So it's like the rice turned out a certain way. So the person's memories of what they did, how they interacted with the rice, changed accordingly, depending on or how the rice turned out. So it's almost like the opposite way around. Instead of you influencing the rice is influencing you. So the way this could happen is if somehow something was able to bypass this normal, let's say this is the normal way things work. If something was able to bypass this, I'm thinking like could be something like CERN, with the LHC machine, which definitely doesn't do what they say it's designed to do. Um, there's no way they would get funding. Just just for the sake of doing an experiment that um, A could potentially, well, they say it could destroy the universe or something. B, it's like just producing. It's just based on a theory. It's just trying to prove a theory, but there's no like there was no practical application of what they were trying to do. They were just trying to generate or prove or disprove theories, which is kind of like crazy when you think about how much money that thing would have cost. Um, so the physicists are kind of like changing their mind, and they're saying that quantum physics and stuff is how they're starting to realize that like the chemical model, the sort of um, mechanical Newtonian model of how the brain might work doesn't actually make sense. And so they're having to like go back and like retcon that with this idea of quantum biology and all this stuff. So it's like you're not even believing in the same science anymore. Um, you might as well believe in the paranormal or whatever. They're also throwing out this simulation theory, whatever. Um, I feel like that's a bit of a truth drop, but it's also that they're just trying to cover their bases, um, so people don't start looking into like mysticism explanations, occult explanations for how things really are. So they just kind of keep moving goalposts, which is ridiculous. But people still like have so much belief in scientism. So yes, I think now the reason this is really helpful is it explains how you can meet someone and you ask them about the Mandela effect, and they're sort of they're sort of in this sort of quantum super state, or I call it like floating inputs. So they're neither in a one or a zero. They're either in a one or a zero, but you can't predict which one they're going to be in, and they're also their state is unstable. So when you talk to them, when you start saying like, "Oh, what's this? What's this? Um, what do you remember about this?" They'll say, "Oh, I remember this," but then they'll basically take the download, which is their opinion changes sort of magically, and that could be a process of where they're basically becoming in sync with the collective consciousness. It's like I said, this feedback mechanism is happening, but it doesn't happen instantaneously. So you can imagine there's like a delay here, and it's going to differ for each individual. It could only be that for some people, when they come um, into contact with this information that it gets updated. So if we imagine that some things are exempt from this, so somehow like internet search results and stuff are not directly affected by this synchronization, reverse causality, um, those could maybe they don't update until the collective consciousness is in sync. So what you hear about with the Mandela effect is like, for me, it changed like in 2016, and then for another person, it changed in 2018, and it's just something we've never been able to explain. Um, I think like what another thing that happens is the story of what's going on seems to change like progressively. So especially with like history, it's like one thing changes and then it keeps like updating itself, and it's almost like it's trying to like synchronize. Like I said, um, but the reason certain people are Mandela affected is because they're not, they never synchronize. This reverse causality effect never happens. So most likely there's something different about their souls, or whatever, that's um, preventing them from updating, taking the download or whatever. So they're not being overridden by the illusion, I guess you could say. Um, there's like an interesting kind of thought experiment you could do, I suppose, if you were thinking about this. Is let's say that this collective consciousness is how um, the reality is manifested. So if you were a time traveler or a dimension traveler, if it was just you that traveled into a different universe or whatever, where everything was different, you would be out of sync with everyone else's collective consciousness. So if you try and think about what the effects of that might be, I'm not saying this is what's going on in the Mandela effect. Um, if anything, it's more likely that everybody is going into like a different universe, timeline, dimension, but some people aren't syncing. But in this example, what I'm saying is if one person went, they'd be out of sync with everyone else. So what would happen was, I imagine, is the reality would try to do this reverse causality. It would try to synchronize them with the new dimension, the new place that they were in, and it would update their sort of memories and everything to be in sync with everyone else. Otherwise, how would this collective consensus be able to manifest the physical world? Because there wouldn't be a consensus. Um, so just from just from watching um, Need Inputs video, I just sort of had this kind of revelation that might be what's happening. Um, I think there could be other things at play, like technological things, like the EMF. Let's just call it the EMF transmitters that are being put up all around us. Um, uh, I do believe in stuff like different frequencies and things like that. I think that's a valid thing to be looking into. Um, but this is just a theory, though, and it's very difficult to prove anything. But for me, it seems like a very useful way to explain some things that we've struggled to explain. Um, so I thought I would try and put it out there, just if it's helpful to anyone. Um, all right, we gotta wait and see what's gonna happen with this thing on the 21st. So we're 2.5 weeks away now. Um, just over 2 weeks away, I think. So it's going to be interesting. The world's in a very strange place. It's almost worth like surviving all the nonsense just to see what happens with the Mandela effect and all the crazy stuff that's happening in the world. What's it going to come up with next is always interesting. Like the one the craziest one I've seen recently was the electric, not electric, they're like petrol, but they're like scooter things in the Victorian times. It's absolutely mad. Um, I found this Japanese channel actually that was really cool, but you kind of need to understand Japanese, otherwise it doesn't make much sense. But um, it's basically talking about all the same stuff that we've been talking about. Um, you can watch it with the English subtitles. This guy, you see, um, I can't read that. Um, but I don't know how to say the channel name. Um, but he's been talking about a lot of stuff that's similar to what I'm talking about, but obviously in Japan. And I've been able to find out some interesting stuff from this that like I wouldn't have been able to find out otherwise. So like certain paintings and things that we're not very familiar with here. Um, Certain like geography changes in Japan and things. He will explain about this. So like this thing is like a silkworm moth or something, and these are like more common in Asia. So I think like a lot of us know about this moth thing. But I think what he was saying is like he's actually like in school they had to like sort of look after these things, um, and the caterpillars turn into these things. So he's saying like it's totally different to what he remembers. um, so I found that as kind of interesting. Um, yeah, there is English like auto translation, but it's not perfect. But you could probably get the general idea of what he's saying. Um, my Japanese is not that great, but it's still more accurate than the Google translation, like auto translation anyway. Okay, I'll leave it there.